panel. I'm GeoHolms. You may know me as the raccoon who commissioned way too much hula hoop arts. Anyway, for today, I shall be your guide to a topic near and dear to my heart in defense of POOF transformation. So, before we start, to get one thing out of the way, POOF, you have now suddenly and unexpectedly been turned into an active audience member of this presentation. And also, before we start, this is not a HEP piece on slow TF or any other sort of TF. Like, TF of all sorts is neat, and I should never deny that. Even the stuff that's not my jam is neat, and that's the point. Acceptance is key. Allow yourself to accept all TF processes, even if not necessarily for you. And, confession, I'll get this out of the way. I've made this presentation because people tend to be, let's say, not positive on POOF TF. And once I listened to someone say that POOF TF is not real TF, it always kind of stuck with me and bugged me because, I love it. I grew up with it. But also, a second confession, one of my first TF media memories was this grim fairy tale retelling of Donkey Cabbages, which consists of the scene of a dude eating a cabbage, turning into a donkey, and getting a silly donkey voice. That sounds just like this. And then proceeding to eat more cabbages. It was great. He turned back soon after, but But I digress. Let us carry on with this presentation. What is transformation? Okay, you're at ShifterCon. I suspect you all know, but in the interest of being thorough, TF is the transition of something from one form into another form. I know it's more than that, but But also, here's an example of a snake from Princess of the Frog getting shipped into a bunch of forms really quick and looking a bit cursed, but cute at the same time. So I'll let it pass, kind of deal. And also, a fun fact before we continue: did you know you're experiencing transformation yourself right now? Otherwise, consistently turning into an older version of you, known as real-time age progression. Or is it POOF TF because you're a new age every moment? Alas, something for philosophers and poets to consider. But let's carry on and appreciate these cute raccoons from Mighty Mike. And let's move on to what is POOF transformation. POOF transformation is the fast and or instant transition of something from one form to another form, sometimes accompanied by a puff or poof of smoke. This example being from the movie Turning Red, where a girl turns into a giant red panda creature with a pink poof of smoke, which, if Pixar does it, Poof TF must be doing something, right? Am I right? I'm right. I'm pretty right. And we'll also cover, like, Poof TF doesn't always include a poof. Poof TF is just instant TF. In fact, I say many parts of this presentation can be defensive, instant or fast TF. And Poof TF and fast TF are just a quick and immediate shift from one form to another, which in turn can be visualized in any number of ways. Like wispiness, static, blink, flash, hoop. Okay, I admit hoop is a bit of a stretch because there's technically a transition, but for me to do a presentation and not include it felt a little bit disingenuous. But I love it. And just fast TF with transition. That's really what it is. Just look at this GIF from the seminal TF hula hoop work, Magician Mickey, a magician turning Donald Duck into a kangaroo and a walrus. And if you really think about it, hoop TF is just poof backwards, and the H is an F. So okay, yeah. Oh, I was supposed to cut that out. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We're going good. We're good. Okay. And also, it can be visualized as etc. I mean, essentially, any ways you imagine for an instance TF, you can really play with it. So, yeah. And why do people not like POOF TF? Yes, I know it is very confusing. Duck for migration, who I totally don't think TF thoughts about. To be, it be true, and there be some common arguments I see about people not liking POOF TF. They say it's too fast. There's no transition. They say it's visually uninteresting. They say it's boring, and they say it misses the point of TF. And I feel like we ought to take a moment to focus on these respective points. Like, oh, I'd say there's not a visual transition from one form to another. There's still a transition. The transition is just on the back end. It be the it be in the physical, as in the subject is immediately having to get used to whatever they happen to be in, and with all the paws and claws and maws and beak, whatever else. It be in the mental of them psychologically transitioning to the terms of the sudden immediate new form, trying to catch up with their situation and do instincts, and it be in the situational, the new form, and how they transition to new environments, the how the new environments in those react to it, and like I don't know, as a random example, like say someone turns into a buffalo in the middle of the bank, there would be definitely a reaction from the surrounding environment and people of how that happened, kind of deal, and what happened. But also, I'd say like it's fast because it's about the destination kind of deal, and it be like the reaction to the destination of what they've turned into, or it be like they wanted to get the destination to have a certain function, like to be sneaky or to be fast, like turn to a cheat or something, or they just want to be what they want to be, kind of deal. But we'll poke that a little further as we get into post TF stuff. Oh, a small note. I can't really see the chat at the moment, so there will be questions at the end of this presentation that I will get to later, kind of deal, if you wish. I'm not an expert, but I'll always give my opinion on it. Oh no. Oops. I. Oh no. Okay, one moment. There is a. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Okay, there is a slight thing with this slide, but as I was like, okay. Oh no. Okay, one moment here. I have a quick transitionary thing for this moment here. I apologize for this quick. I need to do a quick edit here. One moment here. I am so sorry. One moment here, just doing a quick edit because something got missed in the transitionary period. Sorry about that. There is a there's always going to be a little bits and pieces of technical things in the course of transitioning from one slide to another. Or you could say, like, TFing from one slide to another. Okay, yeah, I know this is a stretch, but I do what I can. I'm a simple raccoon. Okay, we're good. We're back again. Okay, cool. We're good. Just I apologize. Good peeps in the audience. And we're carrying on. Also, I just gotta appreciate, I really love this gif of somebody who totally looks like they've been turned into a cat and have absolutely no idea how they uh, how they are a cat or how to deal with being a cat. So yeah, but let us carry on. Go through this. Okay. Okay. And as far as the argument of visually uninteresting, I say this be a matter of perspective, but POOF and fast TF can be portrayed in any number of fun ways. And I think art uses it in a lot of ways, kind of deal. And there's like I've seen so much out there of like artists doing interesting things with it, whether it be like shrinking out of clothes, whether it be playing with poses, whether it be playing with motion between one way or another. There's just a lot of cool ways, kind of deal. And if you just look around like TF art, like just look up Poof TF on like a site like an art site kind of deal, there's so many fun examples of what can be done with it. I wasn't sure whether or not I could use certain art from other things, but I was going to use art with my character for a few silly examples here. Like, for instance, this of my character, my raccoon character Geo, being poofed into a rattling vase with a really neat raccoon design. Looks somewhat familiar. Or this spiffy poof of Geo being turned to a small pool toy creature after a year being stuck as a Thanksgiving parade balloon, which I will not be elaborating at this time, but it was a heck of a year. Or this art of Geo being poofed into a donut, which you very much shouldn't eat because it's probably very cursed, but probably tasty. But that is not the point because you should not eat it. Um, and the two sketches of the are from a wonderful Casper Coyote on the internet, and the one of Pool Toy Geo is from a Kitsune Kit. Both fantastic TF artists on the internet. And also, boring. In regards to being boring, I think we've mostly covered this in a previous slide. But let's dig into a little. Like, POOF TF and instant TF portrayals can vary greatly, and both in a visual respect, you can like show it in a different, very fun ways, kind of deal. It could be a conflict, like someone turns to a badger plush or something. Not pulling from experience here. And I think it also can be fascinating in a narrative sense because if you want to get immediately to the conflicts of being another creature in a narrative sense and play with post TF, it is really good to go along to it immediately, kind of deal, because it can cause a conflict. It can cause like character shifts, kind of deal of like, yeah, and play with the elements of but really be a matter of perspective, which is the point I come coming back to. What is boring for you will be wildly interesting for someone else. And this GIF is playing is just this weird movie, anything, absolutely anything, where a guy turns his friend into a duck to prove he has TF power still or reality altering power still. But I don't know. Take that as you will. And to the argument, miss the point of TF. What is the point of TF? I think there's a lot of answers to that, but to the end, transformation is personal, and there's different preferences for whoever likes it. So in turn, there's a lot of answers. But TF is amazing because TF is always shifting depending on people's backgrounds, perspectives, and imagination. And I think that's what makes TF so great. And I will admit, I will return to this point in our slides, but I think it's really important kind of deal of just the great elements of like what TF can be can shift so much. And well, I just love this gif of just someone turning into a dog with fetch because yeah, it's fast, to the point, silly, and who wouldn't want to be a dog kind of deal. But I think from here we can kind of move over to the functions of POOF whether it be a narrative or visual styles kind of deal. Like practical, like someone needs to hide quick and turns into an object to hide. Tactical, using a defensive method, like in tabletop RPG setting or video games or otherwise, like turning into a big monster into a small bunny that totally can't hurt you. Or situational, it fits the character, genre, or situation. Post TF, when you want to deal with a new form now and deal with all the aftermath from there. And budget friendly Ecol. Like you don't have the time or budget for practical or CG effects. I admit these aren't strict categories and mostly just blurry functions. Any post TF situation may end up in being multiple categories, and we're going to be digging into these right about now. Like on a practical aspect, you need to be something else fast. Don't have time to deal with the growing of tail and hooves and such. POOF TF is the product to you. Instant TF, all the TF, a fraction of the time. And just consider this chilly gift from Grizzly and the Lemmings of a bear being turned into a variety of forms by lemmings with a TF plot device. See how practical it is? Just shifting from one form or another. How can you go wrong with this? It's true. This does sound like a sales pitch because it literally is a sales pitch. You've caught you've caught the secret scheme to this plan. And with tactical, I was thinking about tabletop games and video games with this one. With a quick transformation, the subject has little time to react or adapt, so therefore they're at a disadvantage. It be a darn good option for combat and defensive purposes, and immediately diffuses a situation or problem. Like you're being charged like an angry monster, and ta-da, they just be a little bunny. I don't know why I think about little bunnies so much, but okay, there's a reason why I think about little bunnies, and we'll get to there later. Like for instance, this case of OG Remore as Puss in Boots tricking this giant to poof into a little mouse and then proceeding to I guess let's say diffuse the situation? Question mark, complete with a little poof of a burp, I guess? Question mark. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. We'll be probably fine. We can carry on. Next is situational. Sometimes poof TF is just best for the situation. Like fast TF just fits some settings and characters better, and it just fits the style or sort of vibe they give up. And the tone of the property matters. Like sometimes the fast TF fits in with a humorous light tone of being played in. In the same token, sometimes works best for pacing and jokes. Like maybe in a courtroom, it'd be funny if a lawyer immediately became a kangaroo for some sort of kangaroo court joke. Like, long story short, sometimes Poof TF and Fast TF just fits the situation. Like this case in Mao Mao, Heroes of Pure Heart, showing off Tanuki Keys, a Tanuki who can shift forms at will in silly and fun ways, and is totally Mao Mao's ex and is messing with him by being a copy of him. And we'll get into that. It's fine. And I know there'll be another panel on this, what actually I saw, which was really good, and they did a good job of giving a lot of fun examples of the post TF journey. And I feel like there's a relation between those who like Proof TF and those who like post TF, because Proof TF is just a shortcut to the post TF situation. You get to explore and deal with a new form immediately. And what better way? Yeah, and that it's just a really good way to get there and start dealing with being a new creature or form or whatever you are kind of deal. And it's less time transforming, more time being in a new form. One moment you're one thing, next you're another, nibbling on some clover in the backyard, nose and whiskers are twitching, ears perked, cottontail, a oh gosh darn it, I'm still thinking about bunnies kind of deal. Apologize if that causes any TF in the audience. But yeah. And I know they and come on, it's just so much fun to see a character panic. Like, here's just Kenai panicking from the fact he suddenly is a bear because you can't go wrong with this. And sometimes PoofTF just be the budget friendly vehicle. Not everyone has the money to deal with practical or CG effects. Not everyone has the time to dig into like the process of TF. And not everyone wants to deal with the transitional part of the TF. And so Poof TF is a good way to get from point A to point B. And the example here being Bunny being shrank in a comedic fashion. I don't know the source of this. I think it was a hard drive ad, but I do know that's Twilight Bunny. So I would need to do some digging to find that in the future. And as a bonus, honestly, post TF doesn't have to have a function or reason. Poof TF is just neat. Right. I'm right. I mean, at least part of the people are here is because they feel the exact same thing. And they're looking for more reasons to show to their friends why Poof TF is cool. And okay, we're going to move on to some examples of Poof TF in visual media. Like, and these are going to be silly. I can't say that any of these are really going to shift anyone's opinions on these or anyone or really convince anyone that Poof TF is amazing. However, these are things that kind of some of these are things that stuck with me. And we're going to be starting with we're going to be starting with some silly weird TF commercials which absolutely didn't I didn't obsess about in my youth at all or totally didn't um shift my future preferences and transformation. First, here be the Aladdin on Sega Genesis commercial, where a kid wishes for Disney's Aladdin on Sega Genesis, and his friends don't believe him, and so he has two more wishes left. So he wishes them into a dog and a fire hydrant for reasons unknown that were kind of existentially terrifying. Then there's this Burger King commercial where a wizard kid turns a bully dressed as a werewolf into a hamster. Why? To promote Hamtaro toys at BK Kids Meals. And here's what I found later on that's just really strange, where a guy, accidentally wishes himself into a giant talking ice cream drumstick cone and proceeds to get eaten by his friends. And I swear he says this. He says, "Watch out for my nuts." in the process. Crazy stuff. Also, I gotta dig into this like specifically kind of deal because let's face it, like Ratchet and Clank ads in were just kind of fun, honestly. And I love them. Like there's the Morph Array where where some guys turn their friend Jerry into a chicken and then proceed to be like, oh, we don't know how to turn him back. Or there's the Sheepinator, where some guys try and turn their cat into a sheep. Instead, they turn one of the guy's moms into a sheep. Or the Mutator, where some guys turn a friend's girlfriend into a cow and call him a cow kisser. And I don't even know with these ads. However, they're some of my faves, especially the Morph run, because all these you have the practical use of like a puff of smoke kind of deal, which is kind of fun transition. And honestly, friends messing with a TF plot device is always going to be like a weakness of mine. So this stuck with me. It's a silly situation, but I kind of loved it back in the day, and I still kind of love it now. Honestly, it's silly, but you get the point. Also, television. There's a lot of examples on television because they don't have the budgets to really deal with like a transformation, and sometimes it works best for the tone and joke. And I don't have a lot of examples of this. I mean, I do, but like I just kind of limited my scope for this one kind of deal. But for instance, like stuff that stuck with me, like I grew up with Bewitched, and I always loved this silly scene where Discount Darren was turned into a Rottweiler and then had to proceed to be like begged to be turned back into a human, which that totally didn't cause anything in me later or anything. Or there's just silly things like Sabrina the Teenage Witch had some fast CF examples. And this isn't that. This is Melissa and Joey, where Melissa is visited by her aunts friend Sabrina, and then she turns someone into a cat. I don't even know at this point. But yeah, she couldn't turn it back immediately, and I'm always a sucker for not being able to turn someone back immediately after a TF because the existential horror of that situation. And I would be terrible if I didn't like talk about bed knobs and broomsticks at least a bit. Come on. Because especially this scene, I think this was like a nexus point for me in like with this POOF TF specifically, it just broke my kid brain kind of deal and caused me to obsess about this forever kind of deal. And it's just great. It's just the flop, the lion tail, the shocked expression, the confusion. Wonderful. Brilliant moment of animation. No notes. Amazing. And And also, I mean, Sword of the Stone, just a quintessential TF movie. How can you love it? It's not necessarily like a poof. It's just like a slow, sparkly transition, but it fits in with it. It's just another transition. It's just past TF again, kind of deal. And how could you go wrong and with this? And who wouldn't want to be get instantly turned to a fish or a squirrel or a bird to deal with life lessons from Merlin kind of deal? That's great. And before we leave this slide, let's take one more look at this rabbit lion. Ah, there he goes. Great, right? But I hate to see him go, but I love seeing him hop away. Okay, and I know this will not help my case, and I hope the audio will work on this. I don't know it will, but let's see how this goes. And I'm not going to give too much comment on this besides this kind of deal, but let's see.
Nonna! Vuoi farti passare la rabbia con un balletto? Oh no!
Animali e animaletti, sempre ben accetti. Venite in mio sostegno e trasformate questo metto in un furetto.
Francischi Winky! No!
Okay, yeah, you see why I need to show that. I was like literally contractually required to show you that just because I don't know. Well, I do know that Scream makes me so happy. It's so funny, and also Ferret. So, and we move on to our conclusions of this presentation. I would say POOF-TF has a variety of functions. POOF-TF can capture the imagination, and acceptance is key in transformation. And on a personal note, I think that TF has the TF is a variety of ways that people enjoy it and portray it, and don't take that away from anyone because I remember as a kid, super young, making drawings of a kid turning into a dog. And what did I do to portray that transition? A puff of smoke. And in the end, I think that's why I still hold a great affection for POOF TF. Even with all the fantastic art and media out there showing other TF can be done, my first explorations in TF alone in my imagination without the internet fell into using that puff of smoke showing someone turning into a dog. And I kind of love that. It's why I don't think POOF TF should be discounted as a lesser form of TF. You don't have to like it, but I think you ought to give it its due. It's just a lot of fun and there's a lot of potential there, and I think it's just neat. And oh, yeah, it's just silly, fun, goofy, entertaining, lovely. Just look at this wonderful shifting of forms and silliness. Um, okay, I wasn't sure if I should include this slide, but and I have to admit to you, I have way too many um TF gifts kind of deal. So I was wondering, I will check to the chat here. Should I show you any more silly gifts of like there's dumb little gifts or anything? It's gonna be a lightning round of just really dumb gifts I have like gathered from the years kind of deal. It's gonna be nonsense. A lot of these are goofy. Don't worry. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Okay, it's gonna be really silly. Here's lightning round. I've described them very briefly. Honestly, also I don't know where a lot of these came from, so let's find out. Okay, there's just some guy being turned into a kangaroo. Here is one of some lady being turned into a frog. Here is one of, okay, you all know this one. Bed Odds of Broomsticks. Quintessential TF movie. I love Bunny TF. It's why I always love Bunny TF. This movie is great, and you should go watch it. But Poor River Road goes too long, but it doesn't matter because Bunny TF fixes all your issues. Oh, this is just some weird one where some girl gets turned into like a goose, I guess. We'll carry on because that gif is way too long. Okay, fine, it's a goose. Here's just one where just some dude is turned into a rodent. There's a lot of Spanish or like Spanish speaking TV shows with a lot of goofy like Poof TF. Here is, I believe, Wiggums from The Simpsons getting turned to a raccoon with a little weird ringtail kind of deal. Here's dude being burst into like Oreos as far as some really existentially horrifying skit. Here it is just this isn't even TF. This is just like post TF of like Daxter looking down at his new Otso body and panicking because it just makes me happy. This is like a weird respect the couch commercial where some kids are popped into like a dog and a hydrants. Um, okay, if I had a nickel for every time kids were turned into a dog and a hydrant in the commercial, I'd have 2 nickels, but it's still weird it happened twice, you know? Um, here's where some witch turns a kid into like I guess an alligator because to prove magic exists. Question mark, I guess. It's Kid Gator, so I'm not gonna blame him. Okay, this is just Russian Bewitched, where some dude gets turned into a border collie, like you do. Here is one where like I gotta find this thing again. This is like just some dog just grows into like a giant muscle dude, which okay. Oh, and finally, here's the one where like it's like this is packages of from Planet X where this dude has like this mind swap licorice and he proceeds to swap bodies with a raccoon. I could not find a show premise more tailored for me kind of deal, and it feels like they've just been reading my like story notes at this point. Okay, anyway, again, very silly, goofy. I have more gifts that I could have used that I literally had. I had decided like this you can. There's only so much gifts that a person can take, kind of deal. So I needed to pause. Actually, for the future, if you do want to find some of these gifts, I did make some gift sources things for these slides. So if you want to look at this presentation later and you're curious about where some of these gifts came from, you can go back to this. So I pretty much have it here. We don't need to go over these, but just for the future. And finally, Do you have any questions? I'm going to finally take a look at the chat here and take a look. But don't be mean. I will cry. Yeah. Also, I have so many gifts. I could just give anyway. And I'll put this on in the meantime if you want to ask any questions. I don't know if I have any good answers, but I definitely can take a look. Am I currently a rabbit? You have no proof of that kind of deal. I can't. I will either um confess or deny that I am a rabbit. And but I can more clearly say what my first poof TF was. I really think that it might have been Bedknobs and Broomsticks because I think it was a movie that my parents really that liked kind of deal, or at least my mom liked kind of deal, and it really stuck with me. So I would say that's a very good chance that that might have been it. That was what got me on the Poof TF road. And for another question here, and that last question was from Dominic for the first Poof TF. From here for Hooves, any tips or advice on writing Poof TF? Do you try doing it from any specific viewpoint, etc.? That is a good question because yes, I do writing, and yes, a lot of it has like instant or Poof TF kind of deal. And I think the element of it is focusing on the transition of the immediate aftermath kind of deal. Like a lot of times there can be like a change in sensation or a change in elevation or a change in how perspective kind of deal of how you see things kind of deal. Like I think it's a really interesting narrative device kind of deal of when you want to immediately have someone deal with something. The go-to example I always think of is kind of funny when somebody like turns into a mouse immediately, and then they suddenly find like their pet cat is like suddenly bigger than them, and then they have to immediately come to terms first, realize what they are, and then come to terms with the new body, and then possibly have to escape really fast kind of deal. I think adding an element of peril to a fast TF situation really elevates it kind of deal and really accentuates what other form somebody is in kind of deal. And now one question from 10x Raccoon. And I noticed that Poof TF seems to occur in comedic situations. Have you ever seen versions of it being used in dramatic and horror situations? Okay, this is gonna be, I will admit, I am a sucker for comedy in TF. I am a sucker for writing it. I'm a sucker for viewing it. I am a sucker for just like inserting humor stuff in kind of deals. I'm sure there's some of these like, but I think the thing is like I don't think it's used in like horror because part of the horror like transformation in horror, like transformation is used as an element to accentuate or highlight the horror of the situation. So that's definitely a setting where there is where it is kind of like they do use the transition to have the bone crunching, the transition, the like pain of it kind of deal. What I'm mostly thinking about, I'd say, is like American Werewolf in London. Like that seems like an excruciating long experience kind of deal. And I think that's why like transitions are the long transition is in horror a lot of time. Dramatic, I'd have to say like yeah, I'd have to look into it further kind of deal. Like, okay, here is a question from Ponky. Ponky, I guess. Um, like my favorite method of poof TF. I guess I'll always be a sucker for like the sudden like spark, but like the poof of smoke is a classic, and I've seen it done a lot of fun ways, kind of deal. Like, but like if I'm gonna say like or instant TF, I'm always a sucker for the hoop. Like the hoop is used for transition, but I really love it when somebody drops the hoop over somebody and they're immediately something else kind of deal. And there's just like a rush from one form to another kind of deal. The favorite Poof TF I've gotten. This is gonna sound crazy. I am not sure how much I've really like strictly commissioned Poof TF. actually. So, so that it's really it's something I need to do more of, kind of deal. Because I usually do hoop TF, which I consider fast TF, and I figure I've always commissioned hoop TF because I'm like it's kind of like a transition TF, and artists won't question it being fast TF. So therefore, it's like visually interesting thing to do. A question from my Isosceles. Would you consider skin rip or skin shedding TF as a form of POOF TF? I I guess I'd have to see examples. I think it's kind of a, a situation may vary in that regard. So I can't really say for sure. Like I'd have to know more context in that particular question. Question from Window. Was the POOF TF in a so all along? Yes. Yes, it was. You never know kind of deal. Like it really honestly, if I'm being honest, I think that really the thing is I think Poof TF is the friends we've made along the way. Yes, I've seen the questions here. And the focus on the what, confusion, panic of a PoofTF is one of my favorite features of PoofTF too. Like, it's really fun to see someone deal with like a new form and like the panic expression and surprise expression of it's just brilliant because when they're not transitioning, that's actually a really good point. Like when they're not transitioning, when they don't have the chance to see that they're growing like hooves or paws or they're changing size, they're changing form kind of deal. When it is instant, it's such a great feature for them to immediately, only after the fact, realize, oh no, I'm something else. And it can even lead to like that brief moment of unawareness until they realize what has changed, kind of deal. Whether it be they suddenly are like walking on all fours, whether or not like they can't speak, whether or not like it's there's just a lot of qualities and drama that can be played with Poof TF that I love, kind of deal. And there's like, and it's so much fun. Those things that we mind, kind of deal. Can someone put from Galley? Can someone poof TF me? Well, chat. If anyone has a good TF plot device that causes poof TF, I would send it their way, kind of deal. And it looks like the TF bot has already kind of got to doing that. Wow, I didn't know the TF bot was even here. Hello, TF bot. Thanks for getting somebody into a raccoon for my feed. That's very lovely. Is there anything that Poof TF do that Fast TF can't? Kind of deal. I think I've talked to I think I got into it there a little bit kind of deal. It's like that immediate like the chance of like that immediate panic. Like with when it's a Fast TF. Poof. Yeah, well as I said, like I think in presentation with Poof TF Fast TF. Sorry, misread that. But Poof TF and Fast TF are very related in some ways. I think Fast TF is interesting because there's like a brief transition kind of deal. But I think but I think there's still kind of a lovely element of Poof TF. There's like a lovely simplicity to Poof TF kind of deal that's kind of that's kind of nice and cozy kind of deal. And that might be personal preference there kind of deal. I suppose you could argue that like fast if you do fast TF, there's still a transition kind of deal. I'm like, I guess you could say that kind of deal, but also I think yeah, you don't have to. If you want to do Poof TF, do Poof TF. If you want to do Fast TF, do it kind of deal. Kind of deal. This isn't really saying. Actually, I don't. I want to be clear. Like, I don't think I'm ever saying that Poof TF is better than any other TF. I'm just saying that it has merit and it's neat and there's a lot of coolness to it, kind of deal. Here's a question from Alior, kind of deal. And when you write reality altering TF stuff, what visual effects do you imagine, kind of deal? That is a good question, kind of deal. Sometimes it's like since I'm like taught from a first person or a third person limited perspective. I sometimes like play with the elements. It's like kind of obscured, but sometimes I like playing with there being a flash of light, or like there being static, as if somebody's changing a channel. Or I like there being like a flicker of reality sometimes. Like there's like a flickeringness that to show it kind of deal, and then then like they kind of I don't know, like flicker, and then they flicker into a new form kind of deal. It's kind of fun in that regard. Okay. Oh no, somebody's bringing up a story of mine kind of deal where I taught would do fast TF kind of deal. I do fast TF stories. A lot of them collaborations with a wonderful Fox fellow called Lappy kind of deal, and one of them is only tricksters in the building, where somebody accidentally becomes roomies with a kitsune and a tanuki trickster demigod who keep shifting him into a variety of forms, usually in a very fast method kind of deal. It's and I think that's the thing with like POOF TF and like instant TF kind of deal. It like that's actually brings up a great point because it's really nice for functionality or for utilitarian TF purposes. Like if somebody needs a particular object or needs a particular form really quickly, it's really good to get there kind of deal. I talked about that a bit kind of deal, but it's like really funny if somebody's like, "Oh no, I'm really struggling with this day, and I really need to figure a way to get up," and then some, I don't know, say some trickster demigod coyote turns some nearby person into a cup of coffee kind of deal. Like just fun. Favorite movies that I POOF TFs that I haven't mentioned yet. Gosh, I have this terrible thing that when I'm talked about, like asked about a movie, like I know I'm gonna think about this answer later on, like today, but it's like I am blanking at the moment. I'm terrible that I'm blanking, kind of deal. I know I'm gonna think about it later, but yes. Looking through these questions more, kind of deal. Which one POOF TF or TF so slow there isn't any noticeable change? Oh, that's interesting. Like so, like a slow change, they don't notice the form. I'm always gonna go POOF TF. But okay, you knew that I was gonna do POOF TF. You asked that question. This is all in defense of POOF TF, and you're like putting me in the corner, like getting the raccoon in the corner and being like, okay, what are you gonna choose? Slow TF or POOF TF? I'm like, my dude, or my person, whatever kind of deal, my creature, whatever. I appreciate the question. However, I will always do POOF TF. What of like somebody's asking like the puzzlesome questions of waking up after TF in your sleep count as POOF TF? Okay. Uh, um, okay. Yeah. I mean, it depends on the perspective. It depends on the medium kind of deal. Like I've seen things where like it's kind of instant TF. Like if you're in a piece of media like a book or a movie or a TV show and it skips to them in a bed in a new form kind of deal, isn't that kind of instant TF or POOF TF kind of deal? Especially if they're not barely show like the transition. I'd say kind of counts. But again, it depends on the context kind of deal. And okay, here, all of you are like just sending me questions that are just like mind games to see if you can trick me. I see. Not really. I appreciate the questions though. But like, is transformation that takes place with subjects unconscious? Wait a minute. How have I read that one? Gosh darn the heck! Why am I not scrolling? Is there a bad POOF TF you can think of? Okay, I will go back to all of my silly gifts. I think some of these could be argued to be just bad, silly TFs. I think they're still funny, kind of deal. It's still are they really still bad if they're funny, kind of deal? It's all entertainment kind of deals. Like I think that the fun kind of deal is great. Now you got me curious about that horror poof TF. I'll look into that later. I'm just scrolling through your lovely questions. Thanks for being so nice, all y'all, kind of deal. It is lovely to talk with all y'all and how you coming in, kind of deal. My scatterbrained, chaotic thoughts on TF, kind of deal. The TF and Stitch. Where was the TF and oh god, oh was it Stitch? I'll have to look it up later. I know Stitch had TF actually. I'm gonna have to refresh myself on that one. What are my favorite poof TFs that aren't literally a poof? Oh, I think I talked about that earlier with the static kind of bits and pieces kind of deal. A lot of fun with that. There's like a lot of flickers, bits and pieces. It's really fun. Oh my gosh. Okay. Somebody's asking about like fast TF or instant TF can work in a kinkier environment. I do know a Wolverine writer who does do some things. They are Underbelly on for Affinity. If you find them, send my regards kind of deal. I can highly recommend them. They do some good work and they do a lot of like post TF hijinks in silly and weird situations kind of deal. So yeah, I'll just do that little thing there. Silly question. I saw that what you're doing there. Yes, you're all right. Metamorphosis was technically Poof TF if you think about it, because there was no transition. He just woke up as a bug. He was just like a cockroach. It was all him just dealing with the aftermath of that scenario kind of deal. Okay, here's a good question from CJM Pinger. Would you consider a draw over TF to be Poof TF? Like the pencil coming out from reality and drawing over the person in a toony manner. I mean, it depends on how fast. It's a great situation, no lie kind of deal. Like, oh shoot, I just like I don't know. I did a silly little short story at one point where somebody just like took out a ref sheet in reality and changed some poor person into like a 2D Gator kind of deal. Because yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on it can be argued. I guess a lot of these, like on how fast they are, they can be argued. There's a lot of blurriness with instant TF and fast TF and poof TF kind of deal that you can make an argument for a lot of these kind of deal of like being one or the other kind of deal. So, yeah, just scrolling through again. Ah, there is apparently some TF I need to look into on a Lilo and Stitch spinoff at some point kind of deal. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Sleep TF is okay. Yes. TF in your sleep is POOF TF, especially if the visual medium doesn't even bother with it, kind of deal. Hey, wait a minute. Hey, all this thing in here. I'm not a water bottle. There's no way to prove I'm not a water bottle doing a presentation, but I'm absolutely not a water bottle, all y'all, kind of deal. I mean, I honestly, hey, shush all y'all. No drinking. Go away, all y'all. Stop it. No, no, this is all going off the rails. For people at home, there is an image in the chat of a geo water, a water called geo water kind of deal, which totally isn't a former raccoon and totally isn't confused why they're a water bottle kind of deal. And all y'all are showing me like, gosh, there's like thing. I mean, okay, here's gonna be a hot take, a brief hot take before we kind of I'm shooed out of this room kind of deal. But I think in some ways, body swap is Poof TF. There's no transition. It's kind of instant. All of it is like the post TF thing kind of deal. I think that I'm gonna say it here. Body swap is technically Poof TF kind of deal, my dudes. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I know. You're gonna come at me. I'm gonna have to make a whole other presentation and defend this random viewpoint. But I gotta say my all kind of deal. Like I think it's possible. It's possible. Also, I love body swap. I mean, like my favorite like thing ever is like growing up was like Help I'm Trapped in Obedience School. Look it up. Best cover ever. I love without the new cover. New cover is horrifying. It's some like Tim Allen abomination. The old cover, the painted cover, amazing. Great cover. Favorite cover ever kind of deal. I will just forever and ever like defend it. It's amazing. It's great. So, gosh, all y'all getting dark in there kind of deal. Like as I said, like hey, I had all sigh how poof without a poof kind of deal. Like poof TF is only limited by your imagination. It could be interpreted as any way you want, kind of deal. And I appreciate y'all like having this be my silly hill. And yeah, and as I say, like, and that I appreciate you saying like you like slower TF and you like appreciate this kind of deal because that's the kind of thing I say. Like, I, slow TF is a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun to be had, like narratively and visually in slow TF. But I mean, poof TF out of this place, instant TF out of this place. It's just a really neat kind of deal. And I know I keep saying it kind of deal, but you know, I mean, that's the point of this whole thing. Me repeating this kind of deal. I was teleportation poof TF. Don't ask me those things because I love teleportation. I took the absolutely wrong lesson from the 1950s, The Fly. Okay, it's gonna be a wild, silly thing from teleportation deal kind of thing. I saw like 1950s The Fly, the one where he had like the giant ass cheesy head of a like a fly, and all I could think in seeing that, my main takeaway was like, gosh, what would it be like if he did that with a dog? And then my mind was like reconfiguring, like, what if he became the cat kind of deal? And like, I was taking out the complete body horror elements and the existential horror, and I was like, what if teleportation could be used to like TF somebody into a dog kind of deal? Like, yeah. Oh no. Okay, it's being dark there kind of deal. But like, I will say, teleportation as a TF plot device is a lot of fun kind of deal, and you can and I honestly, I think that Star Trek should turn more people into animals, honestly. They had a lot of teleportation hijinks. I think they could have turned people into animals. I think they could have mixed it up with that generator or whatever that device is that calls food, and like somebody accidentally ends up as chicken soup or something. I feel like there's some really silly things that could have been done with teleporters in this show. But anyway, okay, yeah. It depends on the fly. It's not going to be. I've never seen the 1980s or 90s fly. I've never seen that. I've only seen the old fly kind of deal. Dying is, gosh, god darn you! Like dying is as ghost poof TF, y'all. Y'all. I don't even know. Okay. Any other final things? Is being in a coma and waking up at older poof age progression. Okay. I guess since I made that joke about being in real time age progression, TF, I guess technically within the context of this presentation, that technically is a thing. Okay, I don't even know if it's a thing. Anyway, several people are suddenly typing. Kind of deal. Very interesting discussion on here, kind of deal. Like very. Wait, they did have them get TF'd into lizards, but that was kind of a progression, wasn't it? Or did they suddenly become newts? I never saw the full episode. I just know that in Star Trek they just like got turned into like giant lizards and they had some lizard babies, kind of deal. But yes, I think I'll be shooed off the stage here pretty much, kind of deal. But I appreciate you all for coming here this fine Sunday morning kind of deal, wherever it is where you are kind of deal. I really dig the questions you gave me kind of deal. And I have literally way too many TF gifts, and I'm really glad to have like an opportunity to use a lot of these gifts for like no reason kind of deal. I don't have 7 minutes. Okay, I don't have 7 minutes. I actually, it's true. Oh, like the animosity of Poof TF. I think Poof TF. Oh shoot. Okay, I'm gonna be shoot off in like a minute. But like that's a good question, Royal, about like where the animosity of Poof TF comes from. I think because there's so much visual focus, and I think that's a thing that caught a lot of people's imaginations growing up, was like transformation, like in Pinocchio and Werewolf in London kind of deal, and that captured the imagination so much in like those aspects. I think that's why it's a huge part of the TF community and the TF viewpoint kind of deal. And I really think that's why that's sort of TF really thinks. But I think a good amount of people were captured by like not that too kind of deal. Like I saw Pinocchio and I was scared. But who knows? If I grew up with like I don't know, Curse of the Were Rabbit, like we'll also grow a Curse of the Rabbit. Who knows? Maybe I would have been more slower process TF. I'll never know because I'm a later life. My life could have been intrinsically changed if I had seen Curse of the Were Rabbits when I was like 3 or something. Who knows? Who knows, y'all? Also, I love that movie. It's a great movie. It's my favorite quote unquote werewolf movie. Hey, you don't turn me into a small raccoon. No, touch all y'all. But yes, thank you all for coming. I believe I'm going to end this thingamagum, and you'll all have a. Let me finish this slideshow, and I believe I will leave the stage here for the next presentation. You all have a lovely day and stay TFy, all y'all. And again, sorry.